Hi there. In this particular video series, we're going to talk about how to move through the stages of the Tuckman model. What I mean by that is how do we get from forming to storming, storming to norming, and norming to performing? Of course, to do this, we need to understand what the Tuckman model actually is. Now, we'll touch upon the model in this particular series, but if you want to do a deep dive into it, then check out the video series I did on the Tuckman model as seen through the eyes of the Avengers. It's a lot of fun and you'll enjoy it. But if you're ready to go, then let's jump right into it. Okay, so you've been put on a team. So at this stage, you're pretty much just exchanging basic information. Name, rank, serial number, that sort of thing. You're sharing pictures of your cat. Here's a picture of my cat. And really just kind of feeling out the situation. And that's what the forming stage is all about. There really isn't a team. All we've got are a bunch of disparate individuals in a room together that have been kind of told you're going to work together, but you know what? They're not sold on it. And because we really don't know each other, or at least don't know each other in context of this particular team, there's no trust between the members. And without trust, there's no cohesion. And without cohesion, there is no team. Like I say, we're just a bunch of individuals in a room. And so really in this stage, we see a lot of confusion and uncertainty, conflict avoidance, and the withholding of personal information. All we're really interested in is kind of getting acquainted and maybe testing the waters just a little bit. So if forming a team is walking through the door together, the forming stage is us kind of milling around that door, kind of talking about the weather, talking about who knows what, doing everything we can to avoid calling attention to that door. We don't even want to acknowledge its existence. Thing is, when it comes to forming a team, we have to go through a door. There's a great big no loitering sign over that thing. We need to go through it, which means we need to enter into storming. But hold on, can't we just skip storming? I mean, is there anything that says we actually have to go from forming to storming? Can't we just go directly to norming? No, you really can't. As Richard Hammond might say, storming is the prism of the furnace through the looking glass of the crucible of teamwork. In other words, if we're going to perform, we first have to storm. Now, before we get started, what do you think? Do you like working in teams and going through this process? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as usual, I'd like to provide some extra materials for you to use as you move from forming to storming. So check out the description below. I have some links to some templates there that you might find helpful. Okay, so we're about to get started. Now, right now in the forming stage, everybody is just too polite. We need to mess that up. We need to get the waters churning so that we can build a team. We are not going to mix the ingredients of a team together until we put a whisk in and get medieval on it. So how are we going to do this? We're going to do this through a team charter. A team charter is a great tool to use to get team members to ask those uncomfortable questions that, all things being equal, we would just assume avoid. But because we're not asking them, we're not going to get past this forming stage. In other words, the lack of communication is going to be what prevents us from moving forward. So a team charter is a great way to force the communication. Now, I'm going to go over some of the key elements of a team charter here and kind of talk about how they work. But for the full team charter template, check out the description. You can go ahead and download that. All right. So the first thing that a team charter does is it helps us determine what the purpose and objective of the team is and ultimately what success looks like. In other words, what are we shooting for and how are we going to know whether or not we were successful? The next thing that the charter will do is ask us to decide upon the values and norms that we will exhibit while being a member of the team. In other words, what are the behaviors that we will commit to and that we will hold each other accountable for? We're talking about things like attending meetings, participating, how we're going to share ideas, how we're going to listen, how we're going to collaborate, best practices, things of that nature. The idea here is that by deliberately, methodically going through these values and norms, we all share kind of a common understanding of what the behavioral expectations are among the team members. The next thing the charter will do is ask us to determine roles and responsibilities for the team members. The idea here is each one of us has strengths and skills that we can contribute to the overall success of the team. What are those strengths, and how are we going to best utilize them to meet the objective that we set earlier on? Each one of us needs to play a role. We want to make sure that that role leverages our strengths and skills. Finally, another key aspect of this team charter is it will ask you to document a conflict resolution process. After all, you will have conflict. This is a given. It's going to happen. The question is, how are you going to deal with the conflict? The best time to figure out how you're going to deal with conflict is when you're all calm, cool, and collected, and everybody can agree upon the process that will be followed. Now, these might seem like really basic steps, but you'd be surprised how powerful they can be. So I really urge you to download the template and start using that when you're going through your first team meeting. Now, one of the reasons why this team charter is so powerful is, aside from the fact that it kind of nudges us toward communication during a time that we really don't want to communicate, is that it really encourages us to leverage the 5 key elements of effective teams. And so let's talk about each one of those really quick and how they relate to this team charter. Now, the first of these 5 key elements is, probably not surprisingly, communication. Communication is key. Without communication, there is no team. And the team charter really forces us to have important, sometimes uncomfortable discussions. But from this will come greater team trust and cohesion. Communication is so important, in fact, that it really should be your North Star in all phases of team development. Simply put, if you don't communicate, you will fail. It is that simple. Now, the second of the 5 elements that this team charter really helps to bring about is increased engagement. Now, engagement tends to be a buzzword, so let me tell you what I mean. I mean people rolling up their sleeves, getting involved, being part of the conversation, committing to decisions, and bringing their passions forth to help make the team a success. That's team engagement. Now, hearkening back to communication a little bit and putting that together in a little tiny Venn diagram with engagement, you want to make sure that everybody is involved. Don't make the mistake of thinking that silence is acceptance. If people are not speaking up, they're not committing and they're not engaging. You really want to make sure that that dialogue is happening early on in team development and all throughout. Third, this charter will help us learn how to manage conflict. Remember, I told you that conflict is inevitable. And in fact, during the storming stage, which we're trying to enter into, it is an actual, real, desirable part of team development. Don't make the mistake of thinking that conflict is something that can be or even should be avoided. Conflict is what brings about great ideas. It is the furnace through which we're able to find the very best approaches to solve the most difficult problems. So we actually want to bring about diversity of thought and ideas and passions. However, that can be dangerous. So we want to make sure that we always know how to manage this conflict so that we're always getting the good out of it while at the same time mitigating the risk. Okay, the fourth element of good effective teams is shared understanding. Now, here's the idea. I've got news for you. All the easy problems have been solved. We've been solving problems for quite a while, and the easy ones, they're done. That means the only problems left are the difficult ones, the wicked problems, the ones that don't have obvious or clear solutions. And in fact, they're problems that in and of themselves might be difficult to understand. It's important that everybody on the team have a shared understanding of what the problem is, what the solution should look like, and what success looks like. Right now, during the forming stage, none of us have a shared understanding. We all are looking at the problem through our own worldview. we need to bring that together. The team charter helps us do this, and this is an element that we want to constantly touch upon all throughout team development. Now, the fifth and final element of an effective team is accountability. We want to make sure that we hold ourselves and each other accountable for the work that needs to be done. Now, you could be communicating and you could have a shared understanding, everybody's engaged, and even managing conflict well. But if you're not holding yourself or others accountable, the work just kind of strings on, and you don't want to do this. You want to make sure that you're hitting your targets and that everybody is contributing in a way that makes their role on the team meaningful and important. Now, the team charter will help us kick off all these 5 elements, but you're going to see these 5 elements reoccurring all throughout the team development process, all throughout this video series, so keep an eye out for them. And so there you are. That is how we are going to start moving from forming to storming. Don't slough off this team charter. It could be really tempting to not communicate and not really engage and to just fill it out in a perfunctory fashion. Don't do that. Get in there, get nasty, argue, debate, deliberate, make decisions. Start to storm. Because the sooner you move into storming, the sooner you can move into norming. And that's actually what we're going to talk about in our next video, moving from storming to norming. So until then, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you later. Hey, thanks for joining me today. If you found any of this helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button down there. Also, you might want to check out these videos. Finally, I have a Patreon account, so if you're interested in supporting these sort of videos, do me a favor and check out the link in the description below. Until then, have a fantastic day.